Well, it's National Wine Day, so grab a glass of your favorite varietal and join me for some wine facts. It's typically made from fermented grapes, but sometimes other fruit can be used. People travel across the world to visit the best wine regions, but you don't have to visit France or Italy to enjoy a good glass of wine. So here to talk more about wine and the future of the industry is Andrea Jaramillo, content director of Mas Vino Please. She's a wine expert and influencer. She's on TikTok, Instagram, anything you can look at to learn more about wine. Andrea, thank you so much for being here today, and cheers. Happy National Wine Day.
Thank you, Lindsay. Cheers to you. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I want to get right into talking about wine trends. Everyone knows what wine is and how popular it is, but the biggest shift I think we've seen in the wine industry these days is from your typical old world bottles, which are still, of course, very popular, to a focus on more eco-conscious methods of making wine. You are a proponent of natural wine, so tell us what that means to you and why it's not just a trend.
Yeah, so natural wine, like you said, isn't just a trend. It's definitely a movement and a shift within the wine industry as a whole, kind of returning back to the more ancient or original methods of producing wine and winemaking, with a really strong emphasis on sustainability and making sure that we are treating the earth and the vines with respect, as well as the people who produce the wines.
And so on that note, climate change is a big part of all of that. It's impacting the wine industry across the globe as well. So what ways have you been seeing winemakers adjusting and adapting, both in the ways that they produce their wine and in ways that they work to be eco-conscious themselves?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of different ways that winemakers and producers are adapting to climate change and the changes that are happening. Especially during harvest. For example, harvest used to take place between August and September. Now they're seeing harvest start a little bit earlier, which means that the grapes are ready to be picked sooner than they had planned. Sometimes it extends longer into October. So they're seeing a big change in just the harvest season in general. Other things like fire season or frost that happens later in the winter can also affect the grapes. So for example, if frost happens after bud break, winemakers or vineyard owners are at risk for losing a lot of the grapes and a lot of their crop, as well as in fire season, right? Fire season is, especially in California, a serious concern in August, September, and October when grapes are ready to be picked. If there's fire season, the vines are at risk for something called smoke taint, which is essentially when the skins of the grape absorb some of that smoke and oftentimes have a bit of that flavor when the bottling happens and when the winemaking happens. So to avoid that, they tend to make less skin contact wine, so less reds, and lean more towards rosés. That's something we saw especially in 2020. Another thing that I see a lot of winemakers doing is shifting towards canning. Canned wines are definitely having a moment right now, which is really exciting to see. Canned wines are notably more sustainable than glass bottles. So there's a lot of great producers who are shifting towards a canned format.
Yeah, I like a canned wine myself because you don't have to drink the whole bottle. You can just have a can.
Yeah.
It's a more reasonable amount of wine.
Yeah, it's a little bit smaller. It's good for one or two glasses. It's a little more individual,
Exactly.
but it's still, yeah, it's great.
And you publish a newsletter about wine, and in yesterday's edition you actually wrote, I want to quote you here, "Wine needs less judgment, accessibility, and approachability are what grows the wine community." Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by that and the push for accessibility, as well as the push for diversity and equality in this very, very old industry?
Yeah, well, I think definitely with movements like the natural wine movement and a lot of younger folks and maybe less experienced folks coming into wine, I think it offers a lot of opportunity for diversity. It offers a lot of opportunity for more folks to get involved in the wine community and try something new. I think for a very long time, wine had been closed off to a select group of people that perhaps had the resources to purchase the wine or the resources to learn about wine in a way that is maybe more than your average wine drinker. And I think, if we want to see the community grow and we want to see the wine industry grow and become more diverse, it needs more accessibility. There needs to be less judgment. If you, like I said in my newsletter, if you want to enjoy a glass of wine in a glass that maybe isn't your typical wine glass, I think you should be able to do that. I think you should do that carefree and not worry if you are doing it correctly. I think the best way to learn is to just jump into it, to try new wines, to explore new wine bars, to talk to winemakers, to talk to friends who know a little bit about wine, and just kind of dive in. I think that that's the best way to learn. And the more people get comfortable doing that, then I think the more open the wine industry will be, and the more diversity and the more accessibility they'll have.
And speaking of that, for people who do want to celebrate National Wine Today, what are your top tips for picking out the perfect bottle?
Okay, well, if you want to pick the perfect bottle, what I always say is shop local if you can. So try to find an independent or a locally owned wine shop near your home. Go and just talk to the shopkeeper. A lot of times these shopkeepers are super excited to talk to folks about the wines that they're carrying. They're always going to have great tips. They're always going to have great recommendations at your price point. If you just let them know what you like or what you're interested in trying, you can absolutely find a spectacular bottle through them. And again, at your price point. Wine does not have to be expensive. Some of my favorite bottles are under $30. Some of my favorite bottles are $25. So I think that, just like I said, jumping in there, trying to shop locally and chatting with your local wine shop owner to get some recommendations at your price point is going to be the best way to find the perfect bottle for you.
All right, Andrea Jaramillo, content director of Mas Vino Please. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you are planning something fun for yourself.
Thank you. Yes, I'm definitely going to open a couple bottles this weekend.
We'll be right back.